Namaskar. Good evening and a very warm welcome to each one of you to this session where we are going to explore what spirituality means to us. As is our tradition, let us begin with a prayer. When we make a prayer to a higher principle, the principle of grace, we create that space within ourselves where the learning can take root and there is an opportunity to experience transformation. So just take a few moments to watch your breath as it comes in and as it moves out. Be aware of the flow of the breath in the nostrils. Watch the trajectory of the breath as it moves into the chest and dissolves somewhere in the center of the chest. Watch the trajectory of the breath as it moves from the center of the chest, gathers momentum and releases itself from the nostrils. This effort to watch the breath brings a tremendous shift in the awareness of the body and the awareness of the mind that become more rested and focused. So from this space, let us make a prayer to the principle of grace. अखण्डमण्डलाकारम् व्याप्तं येन चराचरम् तत्पदं दर्शितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। गुरुर्ब्रह्मा गुरुर्विष्णुः गुरुर्देवो महेश्वरः गुरुरेव परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरुवे नमः। ॐ श्री सद्गुरुवे नमः। We bow down to all the masters at all levels of existence from all times. And seek their grace to be with us through this session. Just a simple prayer can bring about such a wonderful shift in the inner landscape. So the topic that we are going to be discussing today is, what does spirituality mean? So we are a group of spiritualists, and we have been in this journey together for more than 2 years now. So each one has some idea of what spirituality is. So what does it mean to you? Just you can unmute yourself and share something if you want. Anyone? Shashi ji?
Well, spirituality, I'll tell you what it means to me over a period of time. So I have been going to Rishikesh and been associated with gurus for a long time, but there was no improvement in me. And then the only thing was that certain corrections occurred in conduct. But what happened over a period of time by contact with a lot of spiritualists, you, Ranjana, and many of you, suddenly I started getting sensitive to the vibrations and energy of the day, like the strength of the day at Brahmura, strength of the day in the morning, strength of the day in the afternoon. I started becoming more sensitive to other people, and suddenly I started finding that I'm all encompassing in the sense oneness with everyone. And there was a sort of a narrowness in me, which started expanding, and my heart almost always now is filled with joy and love. And my first reaction is positive towards people. Otherwise, I think I was very narrow and limited. So on the personal front, this has happened.
Yeah.
On the other front, in interactions with others, the girl which I knew in my childhood was a pretty awful person, and the people's reaction to me was according to my conduct. I find that has also changed. But at the third level, this is once I heard a speaker that sometimes when I'm thinking or I think of something, I want something. So sometimes when I enter or want something or enter a room or something, things almost automatically do start occurring, which are which in a sense that as if God is harmonious with you, and your wishes in a sense keep getting granted on the positive role. So now the responsibility on me to see that no harm is caused to anyone or nothing negative is said or even by speech or thought, that has also come. And the journey has been by listening, but a lot of it has come by chanting, just by prayers, just by doing prayers for hours together. So that is the limited experience I have.
Oh, wonderful. That's a great experience that you have shared, and you have shared many dimensions of spirituality. Anybody else would like to say something? Thank you, Shashi.
Can I say something, or Padma?
Yes, Padma, please go ahead.
So for me, my father has been an idol. He was a very simple man who was never on this kind of journey that we are on now. He never had a guru. But one thing that I always realized in the last 10-15 years, that he was a very spiritual person simply because he has never done harm to anybody and never wished to do harm. So for me, that is spirituality. Of course, I agree with what Shashiji said. But for me, that simple thing of being good even in troubled times and not troubling anybody, even the person troubles you, which he has gone through. So despite that, I have always seen him as a good person. And I think for me, that is spirituality.
Thank you. Thank you. Anybody else? Anju or Umaji, anybody?
For me, it's put together of what both Shashiji and Padmaji has said. Just being and being good. That's it.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Maji. So we have, this whole idea of spirituality, that it is at a certain level, it's not a compartment of our life. It is our life. And maybe, as Shashi said, she reached there through chanting, through a lot of rituals. But eventually, when the mind gets purified, we reach there and it becomes a part of our being. And we cannot see ourselves as separate from being spiritual. So if we want to put it in a very practical sense, what is it that we can say about spirituality? What differentiates a person who is spiritual from the run-of-the-mill people? A spiritual person may not look very special on the outside, but there is something different within. So what is that which differentiates a spiritual person from an ordinary person? Now, if we look at most people in the world, or the ordinary people in the world, they think that others are responsible for their problems. And the spiritual person does not look on the outside. He or she says, I am at the root of my problems. And let me find out how I can change myself. The problem does not lie outside of us. A spiritual person is not going to look for solutions outside. But when one is not spiritual, then what happens? That we become experts in vilifying others, blaming them, and we try to put the blame for everything that is wrong at the doorstep of somebody or the other. And we try to change that person. We say, if these people would change, I would become happy. I would be at peace. So it's a constant struggle. We are trying to change others, they are trying to change us. The husband is trying to change the wife is trying to change the husband. Now, this is what in our scriptures is called Ashakya Anushthan. कि ये अनुष्ठान ऐसा है जो अशक्य है, कि it is self-defeating. It's impossible. It is never going to happen. So what happens? What remains? Complaint, complaint, and complaint. More complaints. And that is how it goes on. So there are complaints. Even when there are happy relationships, there are complaints. Why? Because there is something or the other where one does not meet the standards set by people on the other side. Some times ago, I had gone to somewhere, I was meeting some old family, that whole family has been known to me. The daughter finished her MSc here, then she went abroad, did another MSc, did a PhD, she is teaching somewhere. Now the Family comes from a kind of social strata where it is difficult to find a husband for a very highly educated girl. Now, there is a problem for the parents. So there is, the parents have been trying to exercise some kind of subtle pressure on this girl that you should get married now. You are getting overaged. If we are not able to find a husband for you, so wherever you are working, you find someone there, get married. This is a social conditioning of the parents. Now, because of all this subtle pressure, this girl who had always been, such a darling daughter or such a wonderful daughter, she has started having some kind of a strained relationship with the parents, because each time they talk to one another, the parents bring up this topic. So incidentally, all the three, the father, the mother, and this daughter, they all three were there with me, and this thing came up, and I could see how the relationship, the expectations in the relationship was playing. And suddenly when this thing started getting discussed, the atmosphere, the energy around us became very dull. And a lot of negative thoughts or negative vibrations started gathering. So this is what happens when we have this expectation that gives rise to complaint, and then there is no end to the complaints. So one complaint gives rise to another complaint, and it goes on and on. This is another family where they are friends. I knew the wife and husband some 23 years ago in my Guru's ashram. Some 30 years ago in my Guru's ashram. Now the husband is having cancer, he has been treated, he is better, he has to, sort of become healthy. But the husband is a Trump supporter and the wife is a Biden supporter. And that is working to create some difficulty in their relationships. So even though the wife may try to take good care of the husband is not responsive or very curt. So how, because we have certain thought patterns, affiliations, expectations, they are working to bring our own downfall. This gets visible here. We find it in our WhatsApp groups, with there's so much of wrangling and tug of war is going on between different supporters of one party and the other party, whatever. So what to do? I knew somebody in my young age. He was just a few years junior to me. Now this fellow his mind was not there in his studies. So whenever the father would say something, he would get up from one room where the father was and go into another room and sleep. Now somehow he managed to graduate. He eventually found a job, but the father was in government service. He was a very honest man. So he did not use his authority or his connections to find a job for the son. The son found a job. But later on, many years later, one day he was sitting with me when we were chatting, and he is a very complaining tone. He said, "Oh, my father is a useless father. He did not take care of me. He did not find a job for me. He could have spoken to somebody and a job would have been available." Now look at this fellow. When it was his duty to study, he did not study properly. When the father was making everything available to him to pursue his studies. And just because the father, who was a very honest man, he did not even do anything for himself, how could he do something for his son? He would not do. And instead of appreciating this, the son was telling me that my father is a useless fellow, he did not find a job for me. So what is it that we see here in this world? The scriptures say, avicharena krito bandha. Ki whatever bondage is being created in this world is because of avichar, improper thinking. We are all aware of it. There is, in every family, there is a generational gap. Parents always say, oh, in my time, it was like this. Times have changed. So we will have to recognize that. One will have to appreciate that. And move on. There is no entitlement. What has happened, it is in the past. It is not going to be repeated. And as circumstances change, as times change, people will change. Different things will happen, and we must learn to accept those things. So the lesson is, give up all complaints. And this is something, this sadhana of giving up complaints is more important sadhana than doing all the tapas, all the austerities, all the pujas, all the practices. Because if we are able to live in a state of zero complaint, this is the highest spirituality. Now, how to go about it? Because we are talking about something very practical. How to go about it? So, the mind is bound to think. The mind has some tendencies. It will create those issues according to those tendencies. It is up to us that we apply the mind to something which will keep the mind busy and also make it peaceful and silent. It should be drawn from what is happening in the world. So instead of looking at what is happening in politics, whether a third world war is coming or not, we can do something which will create or divert the mind to a more positive pursuit. So what happens? We'll be happy. There will be no time for the mind to get entangled into the world and bring misery. I was listening to one satsang and the Swamiji was narrating. He travels a lot in foreign lands. He's invited by the Indian community at so many places. So one of the most favorite complaints the older people have is that there is nobody to talk to. There are more dogs than people. What are you going to do? And this Swamiji went to one house where everybody was very happy. And the daughter-in-law very proudly told the Swamiji that, oh, we are so happy, our father-in-law and mother-in-law are here with us. So he was surprised because everywhere, the father-in-law and the mother-in-law, when they go and they have to live there for a long time, they become very sullen people. So how is it that the daughter-in-law is so happy that they are there? So he asked, what are they doing? What do they do? Then she said, my father-in-law is a very intelligent fellow. He came here, he saw everything. He realized that all the older people living in the Indian community have a problem, how to spend their time. So what he did that he finishes off his own practices in the morning and he gets out, he collects all these people, they meet somewhere and they play games, they have programs, they are doing so many things. They have even brought out an online magazine. And my father-in-law has no time. So we are so happy because he is very happy. So this is a great example of how we can use our time for some pursuit which is a higher pursuit, which is not going to allow us the opportunity to just dwell upon something which is negative and which is going to create a problem. So one of the basic things is that this is what we need to bring in our life. So we must do certain rules, follow some niyam. The Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, after the yam or the restraints comes niyam, the practices that you follow. So you create a practice, a set of things for yourself which will keep you busy. And by doing that, the mind will be absorbed in something which will bring peace and happiness. As Shashi Kapilaji, so wonderfully shared that she has been brought up in a system since her very childhood, which was a ritualistic system. So allegiance to an ashram, following the practices given by the swamis. And in the family, there was a tradition that you get up, you do this, you do this, you do a lot of japa, do Vishnu Sahasranam. But through all this, eventually what happened, that the mind became focused within and joy arose and understanding arose, whereby the irritants got removed. So this is something that we need to do. And why? Because when we are very busy, we are pursuing something high, we are not so much concerned with the world. And we can move higher by applying our energies to still further higher pursuits. Because if you follow a particular practice, that practice will give you some result. But instead of getting caught up in the practice, there will be an opportunity for you to move on. So you can select something else, you can do something further and move on. So this is one thing, that how to go out of complaint, keep the mind busy. Choose something that is higher. That is something which you like and you are able to do. And then you will be able to rise. So the attitude of learning from the mind, learning from our own challenges and handicaps, and finding out solutions for ourselves, within ourselves, this is spirituality. So you can just take a minute or two, close your eyes, contemplate. What is it that is pulling you down in this moment or at this time? Which complaints are there in your mind? And how do you want to address those complaints? What practices do you want to do which will bring the mind into a peaceful state and divert your attention from the complaint to the peace within. It's not very difficult to identify or to think of what you can do. What is it within your power in this time that you can do? So just make a mental note of it. And you may open your eyes when you are ready. So this was a very practical way of addressing what disturbs us. And now we can take this contemplation a little higher. So keep your eyes closed. Then close your eyes once again. And now imagine that all of us here are on the seashore, on some seashore. We are holding each other's hands. The sun is on our back. And we start walking into the sea. And since the sun is at our back, our shadows are falling into the water. And we are aware of these shadows. Keep walking. Further from the shore. So the water, which is there first, it was up to your ankles. Now it comes to your knees. It begins to rise further. And there is this shadow which is visible on the water. But a wave comes to the shore and it disturbs the shadow. Then the wave goes back into the sea, it again disturbs the shadow. And then the shadow finds itself again in its completeness. So take a few moments to experience your shadow in the water. And as this drama plays out, ask yourself a few questions. Did the shadow drown in water when the water rose? The answer will be no. Did the shadow got scared of the water when it was rising? And it heaved a sigh of relief and became very happy when the water went away? back to the sea? The answer is no. As there were ripples in the water, the shadow was disturbed, it was broken at places. But did it really break? The answer is no, because when the water went back, the shadow became normal. So, what is the reality of this shadow? It is visible, but it has no existence of its own. It is just a shadow. Does the shadow do anything to the water? The answer is no. When you move in the water, you create your own movement and ripples. But when the shadow moves, does the shadow create any ripples? No. Does the water get affected by the shadow? No. When the shadow is there, it is your shadow. But are you getting affected or influenced by the shadow? No. So the shadow is there. The shadow moves. The shadow is disturbed by the ripples, but in fact, nothing has happened. This understanding is spirituality. We are all chasing shadows. We think the shadow is real. Having the understanding that the shadow is not real and nothing has ever happened, this is spirituality. So you may open your eyes and just contemplate this whole experience. What does it mean to you? So what are the questions we pondered? Did the shadow drown in water when the water was rising? No. Did the shadow heave a sigh of relief when the water was receding? No. The shadow did not affect the water did not affect the shadow. Though the shadow was affected by the ripples, and yet when the ripples stopped, the shadow came back to its original state. So the shadow is seen, but it is not. So if this understanding germinates within us and we are able to imbibe it, that will be true spirituality. So we can take this contemplation a little deeper. Again, I have borrowed it from a talk given by one of the masters. He said that once a woman came to him and she was in a very agitated state. And she said, "Look, you may be knowing I'm divorced. I'm a divorcee. Now there is some auspicious thing to be done in the family, and some rituals have to be performed, and my mother said that because I am a divorcee, I should not be present in the house. So she said, you go out and you come back at 10 o'clock in the night." So she asked the Swamiji, is it correct? Normally such restrictions apply to the widowed ladies. Should it apply to me? Now, what restriction applies to the widow and what restriction should apply to a divorced lady? It's all a matter of ritualistic opinions. We are not there. We are into something much finer. Who is the husband? A husband cannot be an object by name. If you take, say, husband, does it signify anything? No. The identity of husband has to be transposed in a man. And only then we can say this person or this man is a husband. So the man is still there, but the thought that the husband is no longer operating in my daughter's life compels a mother to tell her daughter that you don't be present in this house for these rituals. So it is like this, that can a man be ever separated from husband? Or can husband be ever separated from man? No. So husband is an image which arises in a particular mirror. What is the mirror? It is in the mirror of a woman that a man is seen as a husband. It is in the mirror of a man that a woman is seen as a wife. But husband and wife, these identifications, these are just images. Now we can take this a little further by a more practical example. We all have mirrors. Right now, all of you have, you are sitting before the camera and your image is being projected on the screen or your screen. The moment you start the camera, you can see your image. But when you see your image, you don't think of the image being of somebody else, because you know that it is your image. But if a bird were to come and sit here, and the image is there in the mirror or on the screen right now, what is the bird going to think? The bird does not know that this is how technology works, or this is how a kind of image arises in a mirror. So the bird will think that it is another bird. Now, all kinds of difficulties in this world arise out of a sense of duality. So when there is this understanding that there is somebody else in the mirror, what is the bird going to do? Out of this sense of duality, there is fear, there is anger. So the bird will be possessed by these sentiments, the bird is going to attack that other bird in the mirror and try to push it out. Now, this is the state of the world. So if we know that it is just an image, we go before a mirror every morning and we smile at ourselves. We even use it to really clean up the face, look happier, brighter. So it is not the fault of the mirror that an image is being projected. The fault lies in the understanding. So when we take the image to be just an image, we are not affected by it. We can use it for our advantage. But if we consider the image to be real, then there is a problem. Baba Muktanand used to tell the story of a dog. There was a king who created a kind of a big hall which was filled with all kinds of mirrors. It was a Shish Mahal. And a dog somehow entered that hall. Now he looked, another dog, everywhere he looked, the dog found that there were dogs. And he got so scared. And he started snarling at them. So all these dogs in the mirror, in all those mirrors, those thousands of mirrors, they also started snarling at this dog. So what did he do? He started attacking all the mirrors. And because these mirrors were made of glass, they started breaking and this dog got badly injured. He finally died. So it is very important to know that what we see is actually an image. And as we know our own image in the mirror to be just an image and we can use it to our advantage, we can look at this world and see all the impositions or the identifications as images. And when we refine our understanding in this way, then we can live peacefully with all those images, without being affected by them, without being controlled by them. And then we gain our own sovereignty in our own life. And this is spirituality. So if we look at our own life, what is the identification we all have? We all have this major identification with the body. It is only through this body that we are living in this life. It is only through this body and mind that we are experiencing this world. So this is going to be there. So if there is a problem in the body, there is pain in the body, the pain is going to be experienced. If the body is uneasy, then uneasiness is going to be felt. But what is there that differentiates an ordinary person from an evolved being? The ordinary persons get caught or trapped in what is happening in the body. And the evolved being says, it is just an image, something is happening, let me watch it. Let me see. There is pain, there is misery. But whether that pain or misery is going to control me or not, that is the question. And I choose not to be controlled or influenced or affected by my pain or my difficulties. And there lies the secret of freedom. When Lord Ramakrishna was suffering, he had cancer. Some of his disciples saw his body suffering, and they came and told him that, look, you are such a great devotee of Goddess Kali. You just ask her to help other people and she does all the time. Why don't you ask the goddess to take away your pain or your cancer? And he said, no, it's good. So he was in that state where he could choose not to allow any suffering or pain to control his reactions. Why? Because he knew it's just an image. It's happening to the body. And the identification was there. I am this body, but I am not going to choose to be guided by what happens to this body. So when this understanding comes, like we saw in the contemplation on the shadow, the shadow it is seen, but it is not. It is not real. So in the same way, when we begin to recognize that whatever is there, is it real? Is it me, or is it not me? And we come to that fine difference, then we become entitled to have peace through all kinds of challenges. And we rise above complaints. Otherwise, we are going to be guided by our complaints. So this is where there is a need to refine awareness. And that is something where as I said, that we must begin somewhere. So we must inculcate some practices which are going to take us higher. There should be an attitude of learning. We should be able to learn from our challenges instead of looking for some solution on the outside. That this person will change, then I will be happy. It is necessary that we begin to change ourselves and find out what is it that I can do for myself today, and create a practice which is going to take me further. Now, people may have some ideas of spirituality, but we have to begin where we currently are in our life. A baby is born, or a child is there. We cannot just ask the child that you start writing in full flow. No. We teach him little by little. And then one day that baby or the child learns to speak, to write, and do everything. So we have to begin where we are. Like how do we teach children about counting? The children like chocolates very much. So we put one chocolate in the hand of the child and say, this is one chocolate. Now we are emphasizing on one, but the baby or the child is interested in chocolates. So it is there. Then we put the other chocolate in the hand and say, now there is another chocolate. So one chocolate and one chocolate, they become two. So it is out of that love for chocolates that the the child starts learning how to count or do some addition. Now, over a period of time, when this thing has been imbibed completely, then the child, when he goes to school or when he goes to a higher class, we will not ask for chocolate before he or she starts counting. So in the same way, we have to prepare ourselves and begin from wherever we are. What is our state? What is it that we can do? And then we go forward. So we must create a kind of practice, some austerities, some practices. But how to do the practices? This brings us to another point. To teach counting, we took the help of chocolates. For us, what is the chocolate? If we do this, God will be very pleased. Now that is a chocolate. If we do this, God is going to come to our rescue. He's going to help. But somebody may begin with that kind of attitude. But as the practices take root, the understanding will evolve. We go to all the temples and all the gods we see like this. So somebody, a great master said, this is not Abhay Mudra. The God is not giving you, that assurance or help, promise of help. God is simply saying, stop asking. Don't ask. So when we love somebody, we don't really ask. In our own lives, we have seen that when two people come together and they're full of love with each other, there is an automatic surrender. Everything is available by one for the other and by the other for the first one. So it is like this. The same kind of attitude is going to work in our practices. How do we do the practices? And I had this kind of experience or teaching with one of the greatest masters I ever met, Mr. Soli Tavaria. And Mrs. Kapila knows very much about it because she was trying to get me a good job where I would have had a fantastic salary. And I just went to Tavaria ji to ask, should I join this job? Should I go for it? And he asked me 1,000 questions. And then after thinking for a while, he said, if without expressing any interest you get this job, then you join it. And my immediate response was that if I am not interested in a job, who is going to offer me a job? And he got very stern. He said, have I put a board outside my flat that I am available for counseling? Why have you come to me? You have come here simply because you think that I have some powers, I have some understanding, I can see what you cannot see. Now I have seen what you cannot see and I have given you my answer. And you are trying to pick holes in what I have said through using your puny mind. And then someone arrived, he was talking to them, and I just sat there. And I decided that whatever he says, I will follow. And when I was leaving him that day, he called me back. And I was standing, and he also got up from the sofa in which he was sitting. He was looking straight into my eyes. And it was a very powerful moment for me. And he said, take one mantra from me today. And he was someone who had, realized the Gayatri mantra, that Devi had given him some boons and blessings by appearing before him. And I thought maybe he is going to initiate me into the Gayatri mantra today. And he smiled and he said, I am going to give you a mantra, and the mantra is very simple. Don't ask for anything and never say no to anything. And then he said, how do you know what is good for you? So as long as we are using our mind to decide what we want in life, how we want to mold others in around us, we are going to fail. So another master was speaking and he said, somebody asked him, Guruji, have all your wishes been fulfilled? I said, yes, all my wishes have been fulfilled. Then he said, tell me something about it. And the master said, because I have no wishes of my own, I have surrendered all of them to the divine. So everything has been fulfilled. So this is the finer understanding that we have to bring in our lives. And I thought the mantra that Tavaryaji gave me, Solibhai gave me that day, that don't ask for anything and never say no to anything. So then what the divine wants, whatever the existence wants, it is going to manifest. And you will be able to live a life of no complaint. Of course, I said then we must follow certain practices, certain rules. But for an evolved being, rules also don't matter. Mr. Soli Tavaria never accepted anything from anybody. So one of my friends' father, who somehow met him once and just liked him so much that he brought some pieces of cloth for him because he saw him wearing a very nice white pant and twill shirt with gold buttons. So he brought something because he had his own shop where cloth was being sold. So he told me that you go and give it to Mr. Soli Tavaria. And I knew that he doesn't accept anything. And once I and my wife had carried something and he got very annoyed, and when I was leaving, he told me, today you came with something and I have allowed you to enter my house. Next time if you bring anything, don't climb the stairs to my flat. So I just refused to take this, whatever the old man had brought for Solibhai. But he was insistent. He said, you only go and give him. I will not talk to him. I will not do anything. So it was kept there in his office. 6 months passed. And for some kind of occasion, Solibhai had to go to their house. And when he was leaving, the old man quietly whispered in my ears, son, those cloth pieces are still lying in my cupboard in office. Now, Tavariyaji did not hear what was being said. So he asked me, what did the old man say? So I later on told him, this is what has happened. He had brought something for you. And it is lying there. So he said, didn't you tell him that I don't accept anything from anybody? So I said, I told him. That is why I never told you. And but he is also like that he said, now these things have come from this great man, and I am not going to do anything with them. I was driving the car. Tavariyaji was sitting by my side. After about 2-3 minutes, he turned around towards me and he said, in the evening or tomorrow, go to this man's office, pick up those clothes or pieces of cloth and bring them to me. He said, this man has no expectation. He does not expect anything from anybody, not from his son, not from his wife, not from his daughter-in-law, not even from God. And if such a man offers something, it is like God is offering. And it should never be refused. So you go to his office, get those things and deliver them to me. The whole purpose of telling this is that normally what we do when we frame rules for our life and live by those rules, somehow the rules become paramount because society puts those people on a great high pedestal who follow certain rules. But the evolved person is not guided by rules. He is guided by love and appropriateness. So what is appropriate in a particular moment, at a particular time, that is what he does. And this is spirituality. Those who get really controlled by the rules they create, they become victim of their own rules. So when we operate in this kind of a state, when we see these great saints or great masters doing what they do, then we begin to realize that rules are necessary, but they are not paramount. They are necessary to create a kind of a background in which we can grow. But if it comes to a point when the rule itself stops you from growing, then those rules have to be thrown in the dustbin. They have to be avoided. So how we do these practices? We do the practice with great love. The only practice which I have done with great love for uninterrupted practice, which I did for about 2-3 years, was reciting the Guru Gita. Somehow or the other, I just fell in love with this scripture. And every day when I would recite, some new understanding will arise. So because of this love that I felt for the scripture, the teachings that were contained there, it was transforming the understanding within me. So the whole point is that whatever practice you choose, you do it with love. It is not really necessary that we set an action plan target, and as we do in the material world, we somehow make the action plan target, or we somehow achieve the action plan target. Like somebody has decided that I am going to do so many, beads of, say, a particular mantra, say Om Namah Shivaya, and he goes on Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya. At some point of time, it will become mechanical and it will stop giving the result. So whatever you do not be guided by the technicalities. Do it with great love, and it will bear fruit. I mean, there is a very famous story with which Ramakrishna used to tell, that there was a priest who went to an island where some aborigines were there, and he taught them how to pray. So after his stay was over, he decided to go back to the mainland. So when he was halfway through in his boat, he saw that one of the aborigines was walking on the water and rushing towards him, shouting. And then this man came and he said, after you left, we decided to do the prayer today. And somehow we did not remember the exact words you had taught. So I decided to come and ask you. This man was walking on water. And the priest folded his hands and says, you don't need my prayer. You have it all. So it is through devotion, it is through love that whatever practice we do, that is going to bring results. So if you want, we can try it out. But before we do, the whole purpose is, in very crude Hindi, we say, दूसरे का दिमाग मत खाओ. Don't bother other people. We all know that we have learned some wonderful lessons through the mistakes we have committed in our lives. So let other souls make their own mistakes and learn from their mistakes. So unless asked, don't give advice. You know, a common scenario is that most of us are senior citizens. My apologies to Anju. So what do senior citizens do? They become vigilance officers at home, keeping a watch on whatever is going on. So there is some young fellow, he has fallen in love. He has had a fight with his girlfriend. Something is not working out between the two. Now he is in a slightly morose mood. He comes home and he sits and he is looking at the fan. Now the vigilance officer, the old lady, his grandmother, she becomes very alert. Why is this fellow looking at the fan? And then she goes after some time to the daughter-in-law and says, see, this fellow is looking at the fan. Go and find out what is wrong with him. And the poor mother comes and asks, and this fellow who is already dealing with a heartbreak or whatever, he just bursts and starts shouting. So we don't have to be vigilance officers at home or anywhere in society. There are people who are going through a lot in their own lives. We must give them the opportunity to deal with it at their own level and not give advice unless asked for. So if we are able to inculcate some of these, practical things about understanding what is it, that analogy of the shadow is really fantastic. We can start moving to a situation where we have zero complaints. We can become happy ourselves and we allow others to be happy with whatever they are doing. So, if there are any questions on this, you can ask. Otherwise, we can just meditate for a few minutes. Any questions or any comments? No? So we'll meditate for a few minutes.
Sir, I have a question.
Please.
Vatsala here.
Yes, Vatsala ji. A second, let me spotlight you.
Vatsala.
Yes, Vatsala.
Vatsala.
Yes, go ahead.
So you mentioned, I think we should have a volume 2, volume 3 of this talk. You have just sparked the interest. It can't stop with one session. Let's hope you take to a few other sessions. One point I want to ask you, you said we are aware that we have made mistakes in the past. And you have said we shouldn't be vigilance officers and start advising others, give unsolicited advice, which is a dangerous thing. How do we deal with this? We had in Patanjali Yoga Sutras, Dr. Sri Rajan Vakil said about cellular memory, muscular memory, we have that. But then our mind is it's a very real thing for us, gross but very real. For beginners.
Yes, I can. It is by upgrading the awareness. So it has to be a gradual process. It cannot be achieved overnight. That is why we say, in the talk I said that let us inculcate certain practices. As we keep doing the practices over and over again, then something will happen. As far as this part is concerned, that we learn certain lessons through our mistakes or whatever we have done. I can tell you, let us be very honest about it. A very close person who was like a nephew, he lost his wife. Now, amongst our neighbors, we had a lady who had become a widow. Now she had children, this person had children. Somehow or the other, this thought germinated that if the two get married, at least the children will get parents and they will have, they can support one another. So, because this idea germinated, I was in the forefront of the effort to bring them together. At that time, my son told me one day, "You are trying to play God." I was very annoyed.
Because you felt you were doing something very good.
I'm coming to the next part. Now what happened that the marriage was good. Initially, oh wow, very nice. But after, it did not last beyond 10 years. And there was a difficult parting of ways. Now, the good part of it was that, of course, those children that were very young, they had grown up, they had somehow grown up in their own way. But because of the differences in this marriage, they also had their own troubles, their own, viewpoints or whatever. But when the separation was to happen, I was asked to play a role there. And it was not very easy. So then I realized that when my son had told me, "You are trying to play God," it was a very correct observation. So the understanding I got was that we need not really intervene in other people's lives.
I have learned this lesson many times.
So it is like this, that we all have learned. I think if we all search our own hearts, we will find that there are certain things which have happened like this. So the whole process is that for this understanding to really, take root, and or even say healing, the healing modalities are that to heal without any attachment to the result of healing. Each time
That is
surrendering
the tough part.
the process of healing to the divine and the guru. That is a challenge. The ego comes up. But this is a learning.
Yes.
That I am healing, yet I am not the one who is healing. So it is eventually it boils down to taking away our own sense of doership.
So your signal went away. There's a rain here. Can you repeat your last two sentences again?
It is about doing something without really doing it, without
Okay.
being the doer.
Mm.
That is the challenge. So when we begin to do, when we are flowing with the flow,
Mm.
without being there,
Mm.
then everything starts falling into place. All my desires have been merged with to the divine desire. So that's it. So if something happens, then we will not be there. That sense of doership is just not there. Otherwise, there are these challenges. Like there are people who do some practices. They love the master, but they want the master to do something for them.
Mm.
And when that does not happen, then they start doubting: Am I with the right master? Has the master been a good master? Has something been done? So it is all because there is a desire, there is an expectation. The image that has been projected onto the master is one of a wish fulfilling tree,
Mm.
totally disregarding our own soul journey.
Mm.
God will decide what is important for our soul journey, and that is going to happen.
Yes.
That is the lesson. But it is a lesson that we learn through lifetimes. So
Yes.
being more and more aware, being more and more refined in our thought process, that is, and
So
becoming open and transparent from within.
So one small point that we learn the lesson and we won't repeat it in the future. We understand, we learn, we become wiser. But then what happens to those memories? Like emotional baggage, sometimes it's difficult to cut them loose.
So that with awareness, what happens is that we begin to disregard the mind.
Mm.
So if memories comes up, we see those memories and let them go.
Mm.
Like
Don't hold them.
we all have had bosses. We are both in government service. We have sometimes had bosses who were very difficult. Now, for many years, you look at those bosses, and each time the mention comes, you feel some kind of an anger rising, your temples becoming hot, because there is a psychological reaction to the memory. But over a period of time, or when you have made peace with that, then the memory comes, and it's just a memory. It comes and goes, so you can let it pass.
Shouldn't fight it, yes.
It is ultimately because it loses the capacity. That memory loses the capacity to really trigger something in you. It's just a memory.
Thank you, sir.
You're most welcome.
Makes a lot of sense. Makes a lot of sense.
Shashiji, you want to say something?
Yes, as a matter of fact, Gaur Sahib, I'm just again going back to our roots with Soli Bhai. Soli Bhai taught us those refining exercises because the mental content is basically loaded with emotion. And that emotion actually is what gives it power. So what he said is that the emotional debris which lies in the various granthis of our bodies causes mental, body, physical disturbance. So by the refining exercises, you cleanse it. So with respect to this thought power then getting cleansed, or the emotional power getting cleansed, the structure which I have found very effective is actually the Patanjali structure, that you start with Yam, Niyam, Asana and Pranayam. I'm going only these 4 steps. And Asana and Pranayam particularly are cleansing and helping in cleanse the thought and emotional power. As it keeps getting cleansed, then the mental disturbance goes and you're in a higher state where you're able to focus on better things. So almost every day, like for instance, my prayers would begin with, first thanking Dharti Mata, the earth element, then water, air, fire, ether, everyone, thanking them and blessing them that please bless this planet earth. So when you start saying, then as you keep repeating, suppose you repeat, so rote, repeat, repetition also helps in harnessing this power. So actually we have such a lot of literature which is extant in giving us guidance how to take the baby forward. And that's what I've been following, because I do start the day with jap, then with yoga, and then with prayers. So actually it is the structure which is fundamentally structured.
Shashi, suddenly your voice has gone. We have lost your audio.
I
Yeah.
entirely agree
Yeah.
with Shashi ma'am.
The structure is basically provided. We have so much rich literature and people who've exemplified that you look and you'll find. So rich is our literature. You look and you find, you look and you find. So you have to give a certain structure to the day in terms of its timings. Like the timing.
But I would like to add something that the structure is there, but each one of us is made differently. We have evolved through various lifetimes in our own way. So
Yes,
we have to pick up a practice which suits our mental makeup
I agree.
and our liking. Because it's only when we like something and we do that, it is easier to follow.
Yes.
So there is so much available and so many things are available. And in fact, our own Tuesday gathering is a very good platform because there are so many things that we can offer here. So whatever suits a person, that person can take it and carry on. So thank you so much. Wonderful.
What is Sir, may I share something?
Yes, Vatsala, please go ahead.
Shashi ma'am has played a very important part in my sadhana. In many of our Tuesday gatherings, and I mentioned to Mr. Supeji when I met him in Rishikesh, he said the masters are playing a great role in the Tuesday gatherings. I'm very sure of it. Shashi ma'am had once said that she has been meditating during the Brahma Muhurta, and it was like a lightning bolt. With a busy career and family, she can do it. I felt I had a jab on my head when she said that. So now what she said about jap and all that, it agrees very well with me. I feel chanting the Lord's name does calm the mind. I mean, this is my personal experience. What she says resonates very well with me, madam. So thank you. You have played a big role in my sadhana.
No, I feel that the kind of love, unbounded love and joy which comes into your heart keeps purifying you, and you can give it unabashedly to God, and you can, worship Him, decorate Him, you do anything with Him. So the thing is that starts harnessing the love within you, and then you look at others also with the same eyes. It slightly changes. So I feel that the grace of God is a must in our sadhana. I mean, otherwise we are very weak.
I am 100% with you on that.
Thank you.
On that, man.
Thank you. So we have some great, great examples here. When Master Uma is there, I think she can teach us a lot about practices. Then Suman and Swatantra Kumarji are there. They are doing their practices every day, writing Ram Nam, doing the japa. So many practices. In fact, Swatantra Kumarji has no time. Every single minute is utilized in some spiritual practice or the other.
Yes, I wait for Swatantra Kumarji's messages in the Tuesday gathering every morning.
Yes. And two others also told me it's wonderful. They keep reading it like daily prayer. They go through the messages in the Tuesday gatherings. And Uma Madam's forgiveness session, that Soul Connect, was another game changer for me.
Each one contributes so beautifully. And the Guru Gita was so marvelous. Guru Gita was absolutely extraordinary.
Absolutely marvelous. I'm hoping Sir will do the Narada Bhakti Sutra. Some saints will arise in the group. I love what Shashi ma'am said now about the practice. It's so true.
Yeah, because you help yourself and suddenly all small, narrow boundaries break down. And you suddenly see everyone with a kind eye and you change as a person. You're no longer the narrow person.
Yes, very much so. I hope the masters bring on Narada Bhakti Sutra. I'm waiting for it. I have prayed and
Okay.
let it out in the universe.
Maybe sometimes in the month of
Yes.
May or June
Yes,
we will
sir.
do it. We will
Yes,
do it.
sir.
Amol, you want to say something?
One small question I wanted to ask about the initial things which you said in your talk today. Like I completely agree with your things that the zero complaint state and all the things around it. I completely agree and I like relate to it also. But at the same time, I also don't want to be like an ostrich, like putting my head in the sand.
Mhm.
And like the whole drama is happening no but I also and I want to witness it. I don't want to get affected by it. I want all those all that state of equipoise and all that, but also this thing is there that I don't want to do this spiritual bypassing or putting my head in the sand thing. So that was my question, that how to balance this or how to like deal with this dichotomy.
No, there is no dichotomy, Amol. Actually, what happens is that if the mind has become silent, then you will know what is appropriate. So you do something which you have to do, but there will be no struggle in it. Normally, as long as the mind is there, when we deal with something which is difficult or with something which is challenging, there is a kind of struggle that is there. I hope I am able to, bring it across to you.
Yes, sure.
So if we are going into that state of zero complaint, means the mind is still. So when that stillness of the mind is there, then whatever comes up in the moment and whatever is necessary for you to do, you do it. But the struggle is taken out of that effort. Normally in the world, when we do something, when we strive for something, there is a lot of effort. So that effort goes. And then whatever is best or whatever is important for your own soul journey, it unfolds and you participate in that. Does this make sense to you?
Yes, sure. Yeah.
So I think our discussions have taken a lot of time. So there is no time for meditation today. Or you still want to do something? I think we'll keep the meditation for the next session. उमा जी कुछ बोल रही हैं?
I think next time would be better. We may not be able to go deep into it now.
Yes. So we'll end the session with a prayer. Uma ji, would you like to close the session?
Okay, with a blessing.
Yeah, just
Okay,
wonderful.
wonderful.
Thank you, sir, for a wonderful session.
Nice.
Very practical and very useful. Thank you so much.
No, thank you. And this whole imagery about the shadow. I had read about it long back, but not in so much of detail. So one day in the morning, as I was lying on bed, this whole thing started playing, and this arose. And I hope this worked well with people. I mean, it was useful.
I think we are going to have a part 2, part 3.
Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes, Uma ma'am. Yes.
So part 2 by Master Uma.
No. It will be you. It will be you.
Okay, we'll see.
Part 2, part 3. Yes.
Okay.
Thank
Master
you.
Uma also to do a session.
I'll offer blessing.
Yes.
So let us sit up straight. You can make a request in your mind for any physical transformation you would like at this time. Could be any part of the body, condition, organ system that is most challenging for you at this time. Visualize beautiful golden light radiating in that part of the body. And offer your greatest love that part. If it's your heart, you would say, "Dear my beloved heart, I love you." If it's your knees, you would say, "Dear my beloved knees, I love you." So whichever part of the body this is your request, offer your greatest love. And allow me to offer you a blessing from beloved Mother Guanyin, the compassionate mother. Chencho Chenyan Da Sidabe Gwanda Yuanman Wuai Da Bishin Toloni. Chencho Chenyan Da Sidabe Gwanda Yuanman Wuai Da Bishin Toloni. Chencho Chenyan Da Sidabe Gwanda Yuanman Wuai Da Bishin Toloni. Nanmo Haladano Dolaye Nanmo Boleye Bolo Jedi Soban Laye Puti Sado Poye Mohu Sado Poye Mohu Jialo Ni Jaye An Saban Lapai Sudanu Dasya Nanmo Shijali Doima Boleye Bolo Jedi Shifulalang Topo Nanmo Nula Jinchi Shili Mohu Bando Sami Sapo Voto Dauchupang Poshiyun Saposado Nanmo Posado Nanmo Poche Mofatu Dodajito Anmo Polushi Lujari Jalodi Ishili Mohu Puti Sado Sapo Sapo Mola Mola Moshi Moshi Lituyin Julu Julu Jaimang Dulu Dulu Pachayedi Mohu Pachayedi Tolo Tolo Sailini Shefolaye Jola Jola Momo Famula Murili shi shunu shunu bola chang bola shali pasha pachang bola shay hulu hulu mola hulu hulu chili sola sola chili chili sulu sulu putiye putiye putoye putoye midili nula jinchi saili sani no poye mono sopo shitoye sopo mohu shitoye sopo shitoyo isoban laye sopo Nula jinti sopohu, mola nula sopohu, shila sangmoche sopohu, nula jinti banchi lae sopohu, mopoli changi lae sopohu, nanmo haladanu dolaye, nanmo boleye, bolo jedi soban lae, puti sado poye, an saban, an shidendo mandola bantoye, jingang chinyanyen sopohu, shangwan chinyanyen sopohu, Moje Chinyanyin Sopohu, Anbojala Shileshe Sopohu. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, beloved Mother Guanyin. Thank you, the Dabejo Mantra. Thank you, the 87 Dabejo Buddhas. We cannot thank you enough for your unconditional service, sweet man. Countless bow downs, countless bow downs, countless bow downs.
Thank you, Maji, and thank you, everyone. We'll meet again next Tuesday. Till then, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.